A word of warning. This podcast explores graphic and disturbing stories and includes strong language. It therefore may be unsuitable for our young listeners or other people who may find it disturbing. Hello and welcome to True Crime Daily, the podcast covering high-profile and under-the-radar cases from across the country every week. Today is January 16th, 2020. I'm Owen Michael. With me today is Emmy Award-winning journalist and television host Anna Garcia. Hello, Anna. Welcome.
Hello, Owen. Happy to be here.
Glad to see you again. What have you been up to lately?
Recovering from the holidays, I think, like everybody else.
Everybody else.
Getting ready for the new year.
That's true.
Oh my gosh, it is the new year.
It is the new year. Happy New Year to all. Today is January 16th, as we say. I feel like it's still like the first week of real business. For our cases this week, we have a Florida edition. A Florida girl is making headlines after she took matters into her own hands and installed a security camera to record her father allegedly abusing her and the family dog. But first, a Connecticut businessman is arrested in the Orlando area in a case of alleged insurance fraud and family murder. This is the case of Anthony Todd, 44 years old. He's a man who ran a physical therapy business in Colchester, Connecticut, a town about 25 miles southeast of Hartford. This is a Connecticut guy. He moved his family down to Celebration, Florida, just outside of Orlando. He stayed running his business in Colchester and commuted to Celebration. Worked Monday through Friday, travel on the weekends to be with the family. Celebration, Florida. Have you ever been there?
I haven't. It's near, Orlando, Disneyland, that whole area.
Exactly, to southeast.
It's a beautiful development. In fact, the house that they were in is the kind that you have a beautiful big porch and a nice wraparound porch. So they were really living the life. If you can imagine, most people cannot afford to have two homes and fly back and forth between the Northeast and Florida.
Truly, and Celebration itself is sort of a planned community, and I believe Disney company itself developed it, and I think it was established in 1994. So yeah, very picture perfect kind of Florida suburban planned community type of place.
But this whole story, if you look at the family, on the outside they looked very wealthy. They looked like they had it all. Mm-hmm. Beautiful husband, wife, perfect kids, the dog, two homes, successful businesses. Both of them were physical therapists. Mm-hmm. So on the outside, everything looked fantastic. But on the inside, it was crumbling.
Well, exactly. As you say, commuting from Connecticut in the winter to Florida back and forth is, a lot of people would like that. But as we can see here, there were some issues going on behind the scenes here. On December 29th, 2019, just a couple weeks ago, an out-of-state family member related to Tony Todd requested police do a welfare check on the family, said that Tony had told the family member that all of the family members had the flu and
couldn't talk, right?
And couldn't talk, couldn't come to the phone, couldn't communicate. They hadn't heard from them in about 2 days. So deputies respond. They checked outside the home and the surrounding area. This is in the Celebration, Florida area. Saw nothing suspicious. Nobody answered the door. Curtains are drawn. Blinds are down. So they didn't make any contact. Didn't talk to anybody. Left. No issues there. As well, the family's known to travel frequently. As you say, it seems like there was sort of a bit of affluence here. Obviously, if you're traveling frequently, you can commute to homes, doing okay for yourself. As a family said, it's not uncommon that these people would sort of pick up and go someplace that traveled all the time. Kids themselves were homeschooled, so there's that. On January 9th, 2020, federal agents contacted police about an investigation of Tony Todd. Deputies attempted to contact the family, and they searched an area again. Nothing suspicious. No neighbor reports of suspicious activity around the Celebration home. There was no odor, which we'll get to in a moment, and as well as this federal investigation. Never a good sign when federal agents are contacting your local police to check up on you. And this week, January 13th, on Monday, deputies and agents were they went to the home. We're going to serve Tony Todd a warrant.
For his arrest.
For his arrest, exactly.
Because he and his businesses have been under investigation by federal authorities. They are alleging that he was running a fake billing scheme involving both Medicaid and private insurance companies, where he was billing for physical therapy sessions that had never taken place. And the feds had been watching him for a long time. Mm-hmm. In fact, he had gone so far with this alleged billing scheme that he was even billing customers or patients that were no longer going. In fact, the cops did an incredible surveillance here. They were watching. He had 2 physical therapy businesses, so they did a surveillance for a full day, and the business happened to have been closed on the day that the authorities were watching both businesses, yet he filed 16 claims for 16 patients who never walked in the door, so they had him. They had him, in addition to the other alleged fraudulent billing.
Yeah.
So this is all going on behind the scenes. In fact, his own physical therapy license had already expired. And there was a sign on the door. It had been closed since Thanksgiving. So all this is going on behind the scenes, but the folks in Florida who are getting ready for the holidays, Thanksgiving, and Christmas, they have no idea what's going on with this family.
Right, and he seems to be sort of juggling a lot of different things here because he's also accused of getting short-term loans and paying off one to get the other and doing some financial shenanigans to kind of stay ahead.
Well, he was living beyond his means.
Exactly.
Everything was collapsing around him. That's the background when the officers knock on the door to arrest him on the fraudulent billing scheme.
Exactly.
But this turns into a whole other crime when they get there.
So the feds said he'd fraudulently billed tens of thousands of dollars worth of therapy appointments that never actually took place, as you said. He double billed some walk-ins and then other stuff that just completely phantom reports. So the deputies went to the home to serve this warrant. They found 4 bodies inside the house. It's unclear how they, whether they broke in or had somebody unlock
They
the
said
doors
they
or
did,
whatever.
well, when they knocked on the door to serve the search warrant. Well, excuse me, the arrest warrant.
Right.
So they also, while they were there, you're arresting someone, you always want to know, are there guns in the house? Is there anybody else in the
Do a
house?
check.
Is anybody going to charge me? It's standard. So they took a look around the house, and that's when they find his entire family dead, including the family dog Breezy.
It's tragic. And they said the victims had been likely dead since the end of December.
For
so
2
So this
weeks.
is 2 weeks that they speculate that they've been there.
If you back time it, it probably would have been around New Year's Eve, somewhere around that date, if the 2 weeks, just looking on the calendar. So he was living in the house with his entire family dead?
It's horrifying. No, the police authorities haven't. First, they haven't released details on the conditions of the bodies or what was going on inside the house, but it's horrifying.
Well, they have
to think
not
about.
released the manner of death.
We don't know how they were
killed.
dead. We don't know how they were killed. They also haven't confirmed the identities, but investigators are certain that it's
Yes.
obviously them. This is his wife, Megan Todd. She was 42. Alex Todd was 13 years old. Tyler Todd was 11. And Zoe Todd was 4 years old. And the family dog, of course.
Breezy.
Just awful, just tragic. Police arrest Tony Todd on the spot. He reportedly took allergy pills. He reportedly took a bunch of Benadryl and made comments about self-harm. So tried to take his life. Whether that's an effective way to do it, it's not for me to say. They hospitalized him as a precaution. He was released this week on Wednesday. They say that he's cooperating in the
He confessed.
in the
That's what the
homicide
police say.
investigation. He confessed to killing the wife, 3 kids. They're investigating as a homicide. He's charged with multiple counts of homicide and 1 count of felony animal cruelty. So then the onion is peeled. There's layers happening here. The family was apparently being evicted from the Celebration house. It's unclear whether the family knew it, but by all indications, he's carrying all this information. They didn't know anything about it. They apparently had $5,000 in back rent. They got an eviction notice on December 26, 2019. They had signed a year lease on the house in May 2019, according to NBC Connecticut. Tony had missed the December payment of $4,000. As far as the feds go, that was the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services that were investigating this alleged health fraud scheme, the physical therapy business. It seems he was doing 2 companies out of here, and maybe there was some shadiness out of there. One was called the Connecticut Attorney General William Tong confirms there was a False Claims Act investigation into Todd.
And he had something like 20 high interest rate loans because apparently what he was doing, the reports are, at least, the published reports are, that he was so in over his head and was drowning, didn't have enough money, that the overbilling and the fake billing was to help pay for the loans that were due, but he needed the loans to keep the business afloat, to pay for the 2 homes. And he had judgments against him. Creditors were after him. I've seen different figures between $500,000 that he owed or more. The bottom line is he was sinking.
Yeah, definitely moving a lot of stuff around and trying to stay ahead of this thing. I mean, even just in 2017 alone, Todd had he transferred more than $99,000 in repayments to 8 different companies. The FBI was involved in the fraud scheme. There was at least $130,000 in fraudulent bills in that. So as far as back in November when the feds were investigating him, he had told federal agents basically, look, I need a lawyer. Give me a couple of days. They had interviewed him. They gave him a grace period. Said he needed to contact an attorney. He said he'd come back to Connecticut on December 8th. He didn't. They contacted him a couple of days before that. He said he was still working on hiring a lawyer, allegedly. And again, so the physical therapy license had been suspended, as you say. He was doing a thing called family physical therapy, and then Performance Edge Sports was apparently also in the same. It was the same business. This was sort of an also known as type of thing, which is the target of the claim there. All kinds of shady stuff, and you hear a lot about Medicare fraud and healthcare fraud and that kind of thing in Florida.
I've covered some of those cases in Florida, actually.
Indeed,
Medicaid fraud.
It's a big thing. Obviously, it's a retirement state. It's got a disproportionately population of older folks, so it's rampant there. This is out of Connecticut, obviously. As far as the motivation, though, we don't know why he would allegedly do something like this.
No, but if you look at the circumstances of what was going on in his life, one can assume that he was feeling desperate.
Indeed.
Because he was losing his businesses, he was losing his house, he owed a fortune, the federal government is investigating him, and chances are they were going to get a conviction on him. Yeah. They certainly had a lot of evidence against him. Let's put it that way. So everything's coming in around him. He knows that. And the question is, he has said in published reports, the police have said that he claims his wife, who was also a physical therapist, did not know about the alleged billing scheme. And that's very possible, especially if she was spending most of her time in Florida with the kids, not involved anymore. Right. She may not have done the paperwork. We have no idea, and she's dead now, so she can't tell us. Right.
What this brought to mind is just after the recession, post-2009, when, we're going through a pretty tough situation. I remember several stories about head of household actually taking, I can think of at least 2, and I don't have the names offhand, but of head of household taking out the family as well, murdering the family and himself. The same sort of thing. Desperation, financial ruin, but somehow something clicks and you think, I to save my family, I need to take everybody with me, or to avoid the shame, or who knows what. I mean, obviously there's some pathology happening there too.
Well, there has to be. There's something wrong here because, first of all, killing your family, that's an unbelievable thing. Yeah. Then to presumably be living in the house for 2 weeks with your dead family takes a level of
dissociation.
I can't even.
Yeah.
But what's interesting about him is you said peel the onion. There's also, not only is there this financial and potential legal issues that he's dealing with and potentially having to go to prison for this fraud, but then there's this background, Tony's own family background, which is incredible.
Go on.
Well, so when he was 4 years old and they were living in Pennsylvania, he wakes up and he hears his mother screaming. He has heard a gunshot, and he sees 2 men who he doesn't know in the family home. He remembers, this is all he remembers, according to published reports, one of the men or both of the men carry him back into bed. What happened was his mother, Tony's mother, had been shot in the face by these intruders. Maybe they were burglars. She was severely damaged by this. Disfigured, thank you. She lost her left eye, and the bullet supposedly was still lodged in her head. They couldn't get it out. Turns out the father was not home that night, was supposedly at school or something. He was working on another degree. Ultimately, a few months later, the father is charged with a murder plot that he had hired someone, a former student of his, to shoot and kill his wife because he was having an affair with another woman and they were engaged. I don't know how you can be engaged when you're married to somebody else, and was planning a wedding. In fact, on the night that she was assaulted in the family home, he was taking pictures with his lover, and they had a pseudo wedding cake because they were planning their new life together while she's being shot in the face by someone he hired. All this ultimately comes out. He gets convicted. But the sad thing is that in the very beginning, the mother, right? This is Tony's mother now, and he witnessed this insanity. She actually defended the husband and actually testified in his behalf, claiming he could have never done this. He could have never been behind this. And then finally, she realized what was going on. Also, the reports show that because Tony was only 4 years old when this happened, he had nightmares. She stayed in the house. The mother and son stayed in the house for about a year or so. He had terrible nightmares. So ultimately, father goes to prison for trying to kill the mother. The mother is permanently disfigured. That's how Tony grew up. So now fast forward. That was something like 1980. It was March of 1980. Now fast forward to 2020. Are we really surprised to see him involved in the murder of his own family?
I mean, no, we're not surprised because we see that happen a lot, but it is unfortunate to think that you're doomed to sort of repeat, family traumas of this sort when it reaches this level. I mean, I can't imagine that level of trauma and disruption in your life, particularly at 4 years old. I mean, at 14, it would be bad enough, or any age, obviously, but 4, I mean, it's obviously something's clicking in your brain, it's formation and that kind of thing. Again, I would need a psychologist to sort of examine that as far as that goes, but boy, it does seem there's always something in the background that can indicate, I shouldn't say indicate, but could lead to this. I mean, I wasn't aware of some of those details, and it was definitely sort of repetitive. There's some repeat details there.
Repetitive violence.
Yeah.
Just if we put the thing about this murder case, it's so important to understand everything that was going on. Because if you, again, look at his financial ruin, he's facing the possibility of going to prison for his fake billing. He's losing the house. He's being evicted. The business is failing. And now go back and look at who this man was when he was 4 years old and the level of violence that he experienced. Right. It's such a tragic story all around.
And whether you're even aware of it either, whether you're sort of programmed, not to use a Manchurian Candidate kind of thing, but you're sort of like, this is imprinted on you at such an early age that this is what happens when you're a 48, 50-year-old man or whatever the age is. This is what I witnessed my father do. This is what, not witness, but I'm aware of this family pattern. And so subconsciously or not, sort of patterning my own behavior after that. Obviously speculating, obviously more details will come out about this. But it does boggle the mind. I don't know how any rational, sane person can sort of think, the entire murder, the 4-year-old daughter and the dog, and then living with the bodies. It's truly disturbing. We, of course, will have updates on this story when we know more, because I'm sure there'll be lots of stuff to be revealed here.
Absolutely. And if he has been confessing, I think then we'll know more. And once they're done with the autopsies, we'll have a better idea as to when they died, how they were killed. The whole thing is horrendous. We don't even know if they were all in one room or whether they were scattered around the house. We have no idea.
And you wouldn't want to imagine whether a gas leak or something much more horrifying, whatever the case might be. But he is confessing, he is cooperating. Hopefully this is sort of helping ease his own guilt to get all the details out there so they won't have to draw this out. And
I don't think there's any
clarity.
easing of his guilt. I'm sorry. He took out his whole family.
Yeah.
No sympathy here.
I have no sympathy for myself either, obviously.
But the
for
context
family.
the context of understanding what was going on in the family's life financially, and then understanding what he experienced as a child, I think does help us to put this whole tragedy a little bit more into context. That's all I'm suggesting.
When you're that traumatized at that early of an age, that there might be a little bit more gray area there as far as your own rational decisions that you're making, if you want to call them rational, which I don't.
Awful story.
We will, of course, update that story. And we've got another Florida story here. Apologies
We're staying
to
in
Florida.
Florida.
As I said, it's a Florida
I'm sorry,
edition.
I stepped on you there.
Not at all. We are staying in Florida, and there's no shortage of cases in Florida. Our apologies to Florida, but they do have a lot of cases that are worth discussing and analyzing. In the
This
United
next
States.
one is also horrific, but I find it inspiring. It has a little bit of hope in it, especially for anyone who's listening who may be a victim of physical or sexual abuse and feels powerless because no one believes them or no one will hear them. This is the story of a 14-year-old girl in Destin, Florida, who was being abused by her father, badly abused. He would yell at her and beat her, and she had complained. She was a product of divorce, and there was a custody battle that had been going on for years. The father had custody. The mother did not. She had even told her mother about the abuse, and the mother also apparently had tried very hard to get help for her daughter and to get her out of this situation. So this 14-year-old girl, who of course has not been named because she's a minor, takes it upon herself to get 2 cameras. You know, the kind of cameras you put up around the house. I believe they were Nest was the brand.
Nest, yes.
She gets them. She puts them up in her room, and she starts recording and getting evidence about how her father has been treating her. So this to me is brilliant and horrible at the same time. Her father, 47-year-old Damon Becknell, a very prominent, wealthy businessman in the area of Destin, Florida. I used to work down there in Pensacola and Destin, Florida. I was a reporter at WEAR. So I'm familiar with the area, and I would describe Destin as an idyllic beach community. It has some of the most beautiful beaches in the world. It has a lot of development, like condos, because a lot of tourists go down there.
Stuff, yeah.
But it's very much a small southern town. It's near the border of Alabama, so the approach to life and manners, if you will, is very small town southern. So keep that in your mind as we describe what she's been through, and we can put that into context. So she had 2 cameras going, and she captured her father coming into her bedroom and just yelling at her, headbutting her, hitting her, throwing her on the bed. Her head hits the frame of the bed. Her head hits the wall. You can hear the thumping. She had 2 family. They have 2 dogs in the family. The 2 dogs were also on her bed. He takes out what we think is a knife. He grabs the dogs. You can hear him threatening to kill the dogs and gouge out one of their eyes. And then he yanks the dog by the neck, and she's screaming to get him to stop it. She's trying to save her dogs, her animals, her babies from this madman. If you look at the video, you would call him a madman. So then she's smart enough to then get the tapes to the police. She goes to the police and she tells them again, my father has been beating me, and this time I've got the tapes to prove it. And they arrest him.
It's true. The Destin Log newspaper said, according to the mom, she had, quotes, escaped Damon's house. This is Damon Becknell, while he was asleep, and walked miles to Walmart in Destin, purchased a burner phone, and then called her babysitter to take care of business. Very resourceful gal here who's thinking ahead and had figured out I got to take matters in my own hands as far as installing the cameras, as well as I'm going to save myself and go take care of business around here. The mother says he was likely drunk at the time. There's been a history. As you said, it's been a custody battle for a long time.
For a long time, and according to one of the newspapers down in Destin, Florida, they claim that there have been lots of allegations of abuse before, and they also claim that it fell on deaf ears. What proof we will have of were police reports taken, not taken, I don't see why we would not believe that she was seeking help without question. If you just, when you're looking at the videotapes and they went viral, they're so disturbing. He is so, oh my God, he's so violent in everything that he says, does, his mannerisms.
It's tyrannical.
Yes. And it's traumatic to watch. So can you imagine if you're a 14-year-old girl and how many years this has been going on?
Absolutely.
And she's been trying to get help and no one's been able to help her?
Even more so that she did not sort of, be beaten down as far as she handled it so far. Anyway.
She could have just completely collapsed, shut down, and not have tried to fight for herself.
She sounds a little defiant in a good way here. At one point he says that he won't be disrespected in his own house.
Yes.
So it's sort of like he's the victim and he's the, I have to put you in your place. But, this is a common thing about domestic violence and domestic abusers, sort of projecting the stuff and demanding respect and whatever. And that may indicate something about how he feels about life in general. But obviously that's some speculation on my part. But as you said, he's a businessman, is reported a managing partner of 26 businesses. As you say, it's a small town, small area there.
So he's prominent.
Pretty high up on the pyramid there as far as this stuff goes.
And his father is also a developer in the area. Yeah. So you have generations of a family that's very prominent. And look, this is just my opinion, but having lived and worked down there, I can tell you that if you have a very prominent family that probably does all sorts of great fundraising for the police and the sheriff's department. I'm not saying that he did in this case, but if you have a prominent family, this is a small town, and it's a good old boy kind of network. Again, my opinion from my observations of having lived and worked there, I am not surprised that someone that prominent, others would have looked the other way because of who he was. In fact, to the point that the Destin Log newspaper reports that this case in particular has been passed through the hands of 5 Okaloosa Circuit Court judges since the mother filed for a protective order, and 4 of the judges have recused themselves because they either know his family or the mother's family. She also comes from a prominent family. What does that tell you?
4 judges recused themselves since January 2nd, which is when that's 2 weeks ago since she filed this thing. That's already, like, you're making the circuit there as far as how many judges are left.
There are not that many there.
Exactly.
It's not that big. So what does that tell you?
At least they recused themselves, I should say. It seems like kind of an issue in headlines these days, but that is the right thing to do when you have a personal connection, or you may be conflicted in one way or the other. At least they recuse themselves.
But how telling is that? If 4 of the judges had to recuse themselves, that's how well connected this family is.
Exactly.
And the other problem is, I believe his bail was set at $4,000.
Pretty low.
And the community is absolutely furious that he walked on $4,000. What kind of justice is that? Yeah. Look at the video. Of course, presumed innocent until he's had his day in court. But I'm sorry. I'm looking at a video. I'm looking at it. I'm hearing it. This is
what could justify this kind of behavior? No matter what.
Nothing.
And obviously, nothing can. And to this point, with all of this being said, the daughter knows it as well as anybody, better than anybody. She knows the only way I'm going to make this. I need to get this on camera. I need some evidence to say you can't look away. You can't say, oh, it's just some stuff going on in the house. It's he said, she said. She had the good presence of mind to actually get this down on tape.
And to show you how screwy the system is down there, that when he gets arrested, of course, she's a minor, so she's got to go somewhere. And because he has custody of her, he tells the authorities that she and the dogs should go to his friend's house and that they will take care of her. And I realize that the mother doesn't have custody, but what about the mother? And what about other relatives? Who is this man to now decide what's going to be a safe environment for her?
Right. You get some small town intrigue happening there as well. The girl's mother, she'd filed this protective order on behalf of the daughter directly after this happened. She alleges that Becknell's drunk during the incident, as I said. But she also alleges that Becknell's lawyer had warned the 14-year-old girl over the phone not to say anything about the event publicly because, quote, she'll end up in foster care, according to the Destin law.
Yeah, really?
So you've got your dad's lawyer threatening you with going to foster care over the phone. Talk about witness intimidation and you know, the whole thing. It's
How cruel is that? She's a victim here. She's 14 years old.
And again, you're threatening foster care. Mom is right down this, right down on the other side of town. It kind of speaks to some of the privilege there that they think that these guys obviously thought that they could sort of intimidate this gal. Again, details are still coming out. We're speculating on some of the background stuff here, but I think that the lines are pretty clear on what's been happening here.
And again, I applaud her for having the strength to do this.
Does.
And I hope that others who are in the same situation will see a light at the end of the tunnel because of what she's done, that there can be help out there. What I think is so sad is that we don't always believe the victims.
I hope that as this decade sort of progresses, that's changing. It seems like the trends are going that way. Domestic violence awareness and that kind of thing is becoming a little bit more widely known. In particular, Becknell, he reportedly has a history of domestic violence incidents, according to reports and according to the wife. Destin Log reports he's had drug and alcohol problems and a history of mental health issues. Sounds like some anger stuff, according to this. Also owns more than 20 guns. So not making a judgment here or there, but this is obviously a thing that comes up again and again, domestic violence and guns in the home and statistics as far as that goes. A lot of guns, but it's a southern town. It's Florida. It's not out of the ordinary.
No, not unusual at all. Not in Florida. Not that part of Florida for sure.
Again, with the judge situation too, the same judge is going to be presiding in the protective order case that's also hearing the child abuse case.
Why? Because there are no judges left, right?
Apparently so. So that even seems. I guess that could go either way because if the judge is familiar with the details in one case, they might be fluent in both of the issues here, but as far as the blind justice or whatever, it seems like maybe there should be.
Well, the good thing is that now there's a huge spotlight. Everyone in town knows what's going on. It's going to be a lot harder to do a backroom deal here.
Yeah, the profile of this. I mean, we're talking about this nationally ourselves, but this had made headlines as soon as it happened, and on True Crime Daily, social media, etc. It's basically gone through the roof. I mean, a lot of people are responding to this stuff, and they're all basically supportive of this girl and what she had to do, what she went through, how brave she was to survive this. And
yeah, I'm really curious for our listeners and our viewers on YouTube. I can't wait to hear their comments and read their comments on this.
Mm-hmm.
A lot.
Yes, and of course, as I say, you can go to truecrimedaily.com. We'll have updates on this because we want to know more, and there certainly are bound to be developments as this case. The high profile nature of this. You have to think that the judge has to take some of this stuff into consideration. I mean, I wouldn't think that it would change jurisdiction because it's not quite that level, but definitely the scrutiny has got to be.
Everyone's watching, and that's good.
Indeed. Yes. Again, we'll have updates. TrueCrimeDaily.com. Let's talk about some comments. Speaking of which, we've got the social media presence of True Crime Daily, and we get comments every week.
I love that.
This story, you can check out this one. We got some comments on Facebook about police arrested a man and a woman who they say left a bicycle unattended in the front yard of their home. This is in California. Then they attacked would-be thieves who tried to steal with. They attacked them with baseball bats. And then they posted the videos of the assaults. So
It was a setup.
yeah, it's a setup. I'm trying to get people to take my bait bicycle out here, and then when somebody goes for it, go out and attack them with a bat, and then put it on YouTube. I mean, haha, sounds
Kind of
hilarious.
sick.
Yes, so they're arrested. This man and the woman. Mimi L says, "I want to laugh so badly. This is the epitome of the word entrapment." Which indeed that is entrapment, although I'm not sure that outside the law enforcement situation that you can
that
be
would
charged
apply.
with entrapment. But it's certainly a setup, and it's certainly, especially if you've got video evidence that you've put out there online, that's not the most intelligent thing to do. Patty J says, "Nothing else to do. They are worse than the people who steal. They should be locked up, and to put this online, you both suck big time." Food for thought. Leonard W. says, "Nobody should be stealing someone else's stuff. If I'm in the jury, my verdict will be not guilty."
That's interesting.
Leonard takes the point of
Well, okay, let's look at the flip side,
ends justify the means.
which is kind of where Leonard is coming from, I think. Let's look at the flip side. What we don't know, and I'm not justifying this, is what we don't know is, have they been victims of crimes multiple times?
Right.
Have their things been stolen multiple times? Is it possible they've lost a bunch of bicycles that have been stolen? Did they finally get fed up and say, you know what? That's it. That's it. This stops today. And I'm going to catch the next person and I'm going to put it online. I'm not only going to shame you, but I'm going to help the police.
Deterrent, as a deterrent as well. But yeah, exactly.
So we don't know that.
Video evidence here, speaking of the previous case, you're thinking that I'm going to catch these people on the thing, and then maybe afterwards they went out and beat the hell out of her or whatever. Obviously, that's a lot of speculation, but
It is, but it's like looking at it. Again, one of our viewers or our readers is bringing up another way of looking at it.
absolutely.
So while I, at first blush, I said, "Oh my God, what? They did this? Did they do this just for the thrill for YouTube, or did they do this because they've been victims of crime and they're sick and tired of it and they're going to do something about it?"
We're always trying to take various angles. So Leonard, thank you for that comment as well. This next one, we've got a Kansas man in Iowa. He's asked an Iowa judge to let him engage in a sword fight. A sword fight, a duel, if you will, with his ex-wife and her attorney so that he can, quotes, rend their souls from their bodies.
Yes.
A flair for the dramatic here.
Very dramatic.
David Ostrom.
Swashbuckler.
The judge had the power to let the parties, quotes, resolve our disputes on the field of battle legally, according to David Ostrom. He's also asked the judge for 12 weeks' time so he could secure Japanese samurai swords because you want to have the right.
You need the right tools
if you're gonna duel. Although if I challenge you to a duel, isn't the tradition that you would get to select the weapons? I'm obviously taking this a little too seriously because I think even this guy is not really expecting that. But hey, he wanted to rend their souls from their bodies. It's a ex-wife and attorney. Feelings running hot. I can see.
You think he's a little mad?
It sounds like it.
Yeah.
Rending their souls. I mean, it's one thing to sort of
Right.
make vague threats, but boy, that's pretty profound. Sean de M says he sounds like he wants an insanity plea. Again, he's not on trial, but that's a good point. Chris S says lots of men and women would love to sword fight their exes.
Oh, I agree. I agree with Chris S. on that one.
There's a lot of ill will back and forth, but swords, don't threaten people and don't do crimes against them. Brandy A says, leave the guy alone. We live in Kansas. Nothing exciting ever happens here. I say, let the man have his sword fight and we'll sell tickets. Again, it's Kansas, Iowa. It's the Midwest. You don't have as many racy stories like this out of the Midwest.
Oh, I don't know. I've covered a few incredible crimes there.
I mean, on the show as well, but as far as, sword fights in the streets or anything like that.
No, that is not typical anywhere, I would say, a sword fight anywhere in the United States.
And I no word on, he's got the backwards cap here. There's a little bit of maybe he's a fencer. Maybe that's where his mind immediately went.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I doubt it.
When
That's
I was
some
in college,
speculation.
I used to fence.
Is that right? I fenced.
And I was horrible.
I fenced in camp when I was a kid. That was one of the activities. And I just remember there were 3 different swords and the thing and whatever, but it's quite the art, I guess.
Very much so, yeah.
But,
Well, I never made the team. I was dreadful, and I just knew it. I gave it up after the first year. I said, this is
We
ridiculous.
see it every 4 years in like the Olympics and things like that. But
It is
definitely-
beautiful, and it's really tough.
Yeah, it's kind of arcane, though. I mean, it's definitely not one of those current
Yes.
sports. But
So don't tick me off there, Owen.
I wouldn't.
But now that I know
you
that
didn't need to
that
tell
you
me
fenced
anyway.
in camp, we could actually have
The muscle memory's there, decades and decades ago. But I would never, in the first place, of course. And this last one, we've got a bank robbery suspect here. FBI always gives cute nicknames to
They
bank
do.
robbers.
I want that job, naming the bank robber.
Exactly. Well, this one is the Bad Wig Bandit. And for our listeners who can't see this, you'll have to, we have a
Those aren't
suspect
that
captured
bad,
several times. Yeah, exactly.
I'm looking at the wigs, Owen. They're not that bad.
The wig game is not actually bad. They call them bad wigs, but
I
I'm
would wear
impressed.
one of them, maybe two.
And if one of these people came to my booth or my counter and I was a teller, I wouldn't necessarily know right off the bat that was a wig. Although,
No, I wouldn't.
Maybe, you should go to truecrimedaily.com or go to our Facebook page and you can check
Vote
it out
on the
visually
wigs.
yourself. But again, they're looking for the bad wig. The FBI is looking for the Bad Wig Bandit bank robbery suspect on the loose in North Carolina. Carol S. says he's going to get caught, that's for sure. Bad Wig Bandit is hilarious, though. He might get caught. It's bank robberies. Bank robbers don't usually get away with it for very long, and they seem to be repeat criminals. And I'm just impressed that anybody still
Robs
robbing banks
banks?
in 2020. I mean, have you been into a bank lately?
There's barely anybody in there.
North Carolina. Well, that and I mean, California is obviously used to be one of the Southern California used to be kind of the bank robbery capital of the world.
Yes, that's
because of
true.
the freeways and all the rest of that stuff. I mean, you go to a bank here and there's security doors and there's vestibules and there's all the stuff. It depends on where you go. Around the corners here is different than Orange County or whatever. Anyway, the chances of how many movies are there about bank robberies? And, it's really hard to get away with it. Don't do bank robberies. Rebecca K says, thought they were three criminals. So apparently Rebecca K was
three
fooled
people.
By this, not fooled in a good way. Steffi L says, this looks like half the chicks walking around my neighborhood. He's definitely getting away with this. So when we know more, we will update this. I'm going to put $1 on it that I'm going to say that this person will get caught, and then
A whole dollar?
I shouldn't wager
No.
online. And I'm curious as to where he got the wigs. That'll be the story. He's got
You know what? That actually could be the way that he gets caught.
Indeed.
Wherever he's going to buy the wigs, or if he's borrowing the wigs.
Right. Somebody can
Because
tip it off.
someone will tip it off.
I mean, you don't come across wigs very often. And I mean, who am I to say? I wouldn't know.
We are in
wouldn't-
Los Angeles, Owen. Everybody's got wigs and
not
extensions
in
and
North Carolina. I mean, extensions and that kind of thing. And I suppose the wigs, I guess it's possible. But as you say, someone somewhere's got to notice that these wigs are.
exactly. I
recognize that wig.
I think that's how he's going to get caught.
Yeah. Well, tune in to True Crime Daily. Check us out
On Webcast,
and-
web on Wigcast.
Right. Well, exactly. On the wig beat. So that is our show for this week. Thank you, Anna Garcia, for being here this week again.
Thank you.
We'll include some contact details in our YouTube and online.
You can always
podcast
find me
stuff.
at Anna G News on all social media, and that's Anna with one N.
Got it. And a side programming note, of course, Anna, you're going to be taking over the True Crime Daily podcast in a matter of weeks. as I
Taking over?
understand it.
No, I think I'll just be hanging around more.
That will be a pleasant addition. We're very glad for that. I'll be taking kind of a back seat, but we'll talk more about that in the weeks to come.
Yeah.
I'm sure many of our YouTube followers will be very happy. I have some fans that are big fans of my particular halting style. That they won't miss me so much, but we'll see about that.
Oh, that's so funny.
In the meantime,
you're still going to be with us.
yes, indeed, I will still be.
Don't scare
I'll
people.
still be calling in. And I'll still be doing research and writing and things like
You're
that.
still
but-
part of the team. Don't.
Exactly.
I can't lose
You're not rid of. You're not rid of me by
No.
any means. In the meantime, as always, find our content on Spotify, iTunes, Stitcher, and Google Play, and on YouTube, and get updates and subscribe to our newsletter at TrueCrimeDaily.com. Until next week, this is True Crime Daily, the podcast reminding you, don't do crimes.